our founding fathers fought a battle against Islam, a military battle against Islam, the Barbary pirates, the Barbary Coast. They knew exactly who, they even wrote about them, these people. There was a whole treatise they wrote about what Islam presents to the Western world.
Let's read it. What the hell?
We could read it, yeah. So this article was written actually last year, in 2023. It says, exactly 237 years ago today, on March 28th, 1786, two of America's founding fathers documented the United States' first exposure to Islamic Jihad in an important letter to Congress. 1 year earlier, in 1785, Muslim pirates from North Africa, or Barbary, had captured two American ships, the Maria and the Dauphine, and enslaved their crews. In an effort to ransom its enslaved crew and establish peaceful relations, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, then ambassadors to France and England, respectively, met with Tripoli's ambassador to Britain, Abdul Rahman Ajah. By the way, that song from the to the shores of Tripoli.
Do you remember Farrakhan was complaining? He goes, "Why is Tripoli mentioned in this?" Well, because they kidnapped American ships. You fucking piece of shit. That's why.
Yeah. So he says, following this diplomatic exchange, the Americans laid out the source of Barbary's hitherto inexplicable animosity in a letter to Congress. We took the liberty to make some inquiries concerning the grounds of their, Barbary's, pretensions to make war upon nations who had done them no injury, and observed that we considered all mankind as our friends, who had done us no wrong, nor had given us any provocation. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet. There was written in their Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authorities were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found. Sounds like the Hamas Charter, huh? And to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle were sure to go to paradise. March 28th, 1786. Abdul had continued by smugly noting that Islam's law offers as an incentive more slaves to those who are first to board infidel vessels, and that the power and appearance of the seaborne jihadis, who reportedly always carried 3 knives, one in each hand and another in their mouths, so terrified their enemies that very few ever stood against them. One can only imagine that what the American ambassadors, who years earlier had asserted that all men were, quote, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, what I mentioned before, thought of their Muslim counterparts' answer. Suffice to say, because the ransom demanded was over 15 times greater than what Congress had approved, little came of the meeting. Back in Congress, some agreed with Jefferson that it would be more easy to raise ships and men to fight these pirates into reason than money to bribe them, including General George Washington. Quote, in such a liberal age, how is it possible that the great maritime powers of Europe should submit to pay an annual tribute to the little piratical states of Barbary? He wrote to a friend. Would to heaven we had a navy able to reform those enemies to mankind or crush them into non-existence. But the majority of Congress...
Can you reread that, please? And please remind us who said that? Slowly and loudly, as you
can. George Washington. He said he wrote to a friend, would to heaven we had a navy, would heaven permit us to have a navy able to reform those enemies to mankind, like they would just scare them into behaving normally, or crush them into non-existence. Or if they can't behave, we're just going to crush them. That's what Washington said. But the majority of Congress agreed with Adams. We ought not to fight them at all unless we determine to fight them forever. I mean, he was right. Considering the perpetual existential nature of Islamic hostility, Adams may have been more right than he knew, meaning he didn't want to send, he doesn't want to send troops or the Navy all the way across the world to go fight them there, meaning just keep them out of America. Right? I would venture to say he would agree to keep them out of America as much as possible. Congress initially decided to emulate the Europeans by placating and paying off the terrorists, though it would take years to raise the demanded ransom. Inevitably, however, hostilities again broke out, leading to the Barbary Wars, 1801 to 1805, again in 1815, but by now the U.S. had built 6 war vessels. Thus, the United States' first war, which erupted before it could even elect its first president and intermittently lasted some 30 years was against Islam, and the latter had initiated hostilities on the same rationale that had been used to initiate hostilities for the preceding 1200 years against other places. Though most Americans are now unaware of their nation's first military conflict, references to it are common. The oldest paean of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Marines' hymn, boasts of fighting everywhere for right and freedom, including as far as to the shores of Tripoli. And the oldest U.S. military monument was made to honor those Americans who fought and died in the Barbary Wars. According to its plaque, quote, millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute became the rallying cry for this war. Meaning, we're gonna spend money to fight them. We're not gonna spend money to give them ransom. The turbaned heads of the vanquished enemy appear at the foot of the eagle-topped column. Folks, I want to find a picture of this. Needless to say, although the United States' oldest monument was for decades located inside the Capitol building, it now rests in the much less conspicuous faculty club of the Naval Academy in Annapolis. So they removed it and they moved it to Annapolis. In short, although the question of why do they hate us became immensely popular after 9/11, it was actually answered during America's founding, including through a little remembered letter to Congress 207. This is now 238 years ago today. Eagle.
There they are.
And there are the heads of the folks.
And this, again, what is the name of this monument?
The Tripoli Monument. This is exactly
where is this monument located?
It's in Annapolis, at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
And where was it before?
It was in the Capitol. It was moved. Amazing, huh?
In Washington, D.C. That's where.
Yeah. I once played hockey.
Those are the severed heads of Muslim enemies. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. What these are. Yeah, here you go. The turbaned heads of the vanquished enemy appear at the foot of the eagle-topped column.
Folks, they were so disgusted with the savagery that was inflicted upon the captives, right? Their captives, that they could not tolerate the existence of people like this.
Yeah.
God bless the United States Marine Corps. Hopefully they come to their senses and they get back to their original charter.